Welcome back everyone, and it's time to go balls deep. Today we are talking about Black Clover changing the complete power scaling forever.
What did he say?
Yuno has unlocked a new power that a lot of you personally told me in the comments should technically happen. So yeah, give yourselves a round of applause. I want to say thank you once again to this wonderful community for being able to harness balls deep prediction magic. Yuno is suffering from success. With his immense natural talent and being the most blessed person by mana in the entire story, he has been granted another grimoire that matches his birthright since he is the Spade Prince.
Another one.
Now you're probably wondering, how is that even possible? That means Yuno has literally doubled his powers by increasing his mana pool. Wait, what? He now matches Asta's union mode?
No way.
Black Clover Chapter 308 starts with the two spatial brothers teleporting back and forth trying to get closer to Zenon. However, they both realize that Zenon's overwhelming strength leaves them with only one chance left as their bodies are slowly deteriorating. Zenon states that he has grasped their speed and timing, but all of a sudden he's utterly shocked when Finral teleports behind him, encasing Zenon with Langris's mana zone, his magic hollow space out, which means no matter how powerful your defense is, he can penetrate. Combining this with instantaneous speed, they're able to carve out Zenon's chest.
Holy look at all this damage! And we're gonna repair it using Flex Shot.
We then cut to Yuno waking up from the worst day of his life.
I am having a very bad day.
He sees the result of Finral and Langris's fight as he was unconscious for a few minutes having a good old sleep. They're beaten effortlessly because Zenon declares Langris's magic cannot destroy a devil's heart. So now they're hanging on his bones and they're crucified, bruh. This is when Yuno thinks to himself that so far absolutely nothing has worked on Zenon. His main protagonist powers of being OP haven't been working, and two more important characters are about to die right in front of his eyes. Especially Finral. That's Yami's ride, man. You can't be touching someone's car. That's the #1 rule, especially the man we all simp for. Zenon declares his victory, but then Yuno thinks back to his choices and questions if he had made the right ones in his life. Due to his comrades being killed, he begged to go on this mission, even if it meant acting like an insolent person in a place he shouldn't stick his nose into to begin with. Despite all the training he went through, he faces absolute hopelessness. In Yuno's despair, after over a decade, he cries for the first time, questioning if this is the end. After everything, is this really how his life goes? Remember the last time he cried and then he said, you know, stop being a crybaby, and he was like, okay, I'm never gonna cry, I'm never gonna have emotions. Yuno cries for the first time after more than a decade. He finally gained back his emotions. He questions if this is the end. After everything, is this really how it ends? Of course not, silly. This is Black Clover. Don't you remember the #1 shonen rule? Having a flashback in the middle of a fight means more drip is about to be unlocked. That's standard shonen rules. Has had many expectations placed on him. He was special, and for that he gained recognition. But with this power and status, the opposite also occurs, as he acknowledges the fact that he was envied and hated for being built different. He eventually gained the trust of his squad and a new family, but losing this fight caused him to lose everything he hoped for, and we see a shot of a mass grave that Zenon is responsible for. In this moment, Yuno remembers to keep his promise to Asta that he can't let his dreams and goals vanish into thin air. A spirit then appears that tells Yuno that he is of the same opinion, and that despite them being the same, Yuno still has his own unique power. A grimoire comes down to Yuno, and the light from this grimoire pierces the sky and lights up the dark clouds as the Spade resistant members stand in awe, recognizing Yuno's powers. Patry comments that the magic Yuno had been using all along was that of Licht and Tetia's child. Now I know, you guys have a lot of questions, such as who is the spirit talking to Yuno? How come he gets two grimoire? And finally, what magic does Yuno actually have? have. Well, that's why I'm here, right? And I need your support with your mana. So, I got my homie to give you a message too.
And remember, like and subscribe. Or else.
The 4-leaf grimoire Yuno had never really was his, which means he wasn't really using his own magic. Rather, he had been channeling the magic of a half-elven spirit ever since childhood. This was way before the reincarnation of the elves.
I'm confused. I'm confused right now, G.
Now let me explain. I got this. Looking back at the flashback of Zagrid, he betrays the elves to make them all die. We know that Sakari stated recently that one twin died but the other survived. The one that survived 500 years ago eventually had offspring, and those offspring became the descendants who ended up in Elysium. They created a new home for Patri and the other elves within the current time we are reading. However, the twin that was within Tetia that died still was half elf, and Zagrid casted a forbidden spell that reincarnated all elf souls into the future 500 years later. This baby that perished in Tetia's womb was 9 months old and was about to be born after the wedding, but since the massacre happened, the soul is half elf, which means it was part of Zagrid's spell. Therefore, the soul went into Yuno in the future when he was born, as just like Yuno, the elf was meant to be born and needed a vessel that can withstand his power level. This gives us a huge indication why Yuno's birth was seen as such a blessed day, as the sun shone upon the kingdom, as the elf soul was transferred into him. Chapter 308 also showcases the sun shining again once a new grimoire was given to Yuno, as he is extremely blessed by mana and is royal blooded, just like the elf spirit, showing that these two events are actually linked. Furthermore, we also can't forget that we were told the ancient elf tribe was so extremely blessed by mana, they were so powerful, in fact, that humans started seeing them as gods. So technically speaking, Yuno's half demigod right now, like bruh. So getting back to the point, this elf spirit within Yuno is a descendant of royal blood of humans through Tetia, and is also royal blooded from the elves, as Licht himself was the elf tribe leader. Now remember, Zagrid proves to us that a grimoire is assigned to a person's soul before they are even born. It's pre-fated, as he knew Patri 500 years later in the future would gain a 4-leaf grimoire with William as his vessel. To further reinstate the foreshadowing, in chapter 278, Ralph told the Spade soldiers what magic Yuno had, and they were actually shocked and confused as to why Yuno had wind magic, as they were the royal guards and servants to his parents. As we all know, magic is inherited from the parents. Yuno's parents, Seal and Lois, most likely didn't have wind magic, but now it can be explained that he was using the soul of the elf inside him this whole time. All of this evidence explains why Yuno is so powerful and blessed, since he is technically two people in one body. He is half elf and also royal blooded twice-fold. Now in the final page of chapter 308, when Yuno uses both grimoire, and alongside it we see these light flares. These have been used in relation to Yuno at two different occasions in the manga. The first being when he first got his grimoire and fist bumped with Asta at the end of chapter 1, which he actually has a flashback to in this chapter, coincidentally enough. The second being when Yuno gets possessed by his half elf. The whole scene is riddled with the same flares in the atmosphere. In each chapter these appear, Yuno goes through some sort of awakening. In chapter 1 he gets his grimoire, in chapter 149 it's when he awakens as an elf, and now this current chapter 2 when he gets his other grimoire. The reason Yuno has been able to use the elven magic for all these years was because the elf died before it was born, meaning he lived the same life as Yuno has. That's why when he says I'm you, it's not meant to be taken literally, as both the elf and Yuno have lived and experienced the same thing. They've led the same lives, so they're not technically the same person, person, but just the difference between the two of them does not matter. This could explain why during the elf arc that his elven soul didn't take over. It was because it did, but the difference never mattered, so he was able to act like Yuno would have done as always. Plus, the elf soul would have agreed with Yuno's actions anyway. He's half human and wouldn't want to enact revenge upon the human race. He has the same memories and feelings of Yuno, so why would he betray them?
True, and yeah, that's pretty true.
However, a slight plot inconsistency that leaves us scratching our heads is that Asta, Licht, and William actually dispelled all the reincarnated elves and sent them back to the afterlife. We saw all their souls leave their vessel's body so that they can finally enjoy their peace. However, in both the anime and manga, it doesn't show Yuno having his elf soul taken away, which points me to the reason I explained earlier, that the elf soul was born at the same time Yuno was, therefore making them one rather than being separate entities. Although you could argue that Yuno had his reincarnated mark removed when they dispelled the reincarnation spell, but Patri and the Third Eye still retained their souls within their bodies despite the spell being undone. This was used as evidence that if a soul and a body are intertwined enough, they become tied to the body, which prevented them from going to the afterlife. Regardless, since Yuno is originally from the Spade Kingdom and has not actually received his own grimoire from the Clover Kingdom because it belongs to the elf, it means that he can finally get his own one. He has become completely busted that I would say could match his rival Asta. We know Asta is the strongest character in the entire series right now, as Nacht puts it that he is the ultimate warrior. His union mode took out Nama and Lilith combined, who were stated to be stronger than simply just 1 + 1 = 2, but even more. However, Asta still defeated both of them combined in 2 chapters. On top of that, Nacht said his union mode isn't even perfected yet. Now when we compare this power to Yuno having 2 grimoire, I believe Tabata is trying to equalize the power scaling between these two rivals. This is because Zenon has become a supreme devil with 2 types of magic thanks to Beelzebub. However, the difference is that he also has a Spade Grimoire that is the equivalent to a Foley. Zenon parallels Yuno as he was extremely blessed at a young age and has extreme natural talent that his older brother exploited. If we look back at Zagrid, he became a completely different beast once he had a 5-leaf grimoire, and he also mentioned to us how it completes a devil's power in the real world once they've obtained a grimoire. So pretty much Zenon represents something similar in the power scaling, someone that is just as strong as Nama and Lilith. Therefore, if Yuno defeats him whilst damaged and fatigued, he's definitely matching Asta's union mode in the raw power output. And guys, that's when the chapter ends, with Yuno saying that he will save the captain, he will save everyone, he will be the salvation of the Spade Kingdom as well as the Wizard King. That's why he will defeat Zenon. Guys, I have much more to say about the parallels between Yuno and Zenon, but I'm going to save that for next week with the next chapter release. This is why it's so important to stay on the same page as the community. Make sure to smash the like button and to join me next time. Bye bye.